Okie dokie. Let's get it up on the back. All right. So plan for today is to fully complete smokestack and the wheel. Okay. So this is smokestack. It used to be called smokestack. I don't know why they changed it to stack. Right. Whatever. Smokestack. And the other one we're going to do is wheel, which is this one. I mean, it's very clear that, or it should be clear at this point, every dimension on the drawing you're going to use, and therefore a drawing with a lot of different dimensions on it is going to have a lot of part features. There might be 8 or 9 or more part features on the wheel, but it's fine. It's one click at a time. It's not hard. Okay, so we'll do smokestack first. Couple ways to do smokestack. Okay, the first way, and I think it's the way we're going to do, is so we already have this section view. You may have heard the term cross section. Um, that's what that means. It's a section view. These are called section lines. They let you know that you're seeing like the material on the inside. It also lets you know that there's like this hole or recess or whatever in the middle. So we could set this up. We could set this up the way we did with the pegs, which is do a sketch with this specific shape, do a revolve to create the whole thing. And then once we have that, we can draw a circle on the top that's this big, cut it down this far, and then this circle and cut it down. That would be the obvious way. And that is the way we're going to do it. Hold on a second. Let's go like this. Okay. Um, the other way that we could do it is just do it in a series of 3 extrusions, as in like make this sort of flat part with just a circle that's this big, extrude it this far, then do another like a loft up to a circle this big, this far away, and then a tapered extrusion. I'll show you that one at the end. It requires it's a lot easier if you know what you're doing. Okay. But we don't know what we're doing yet. All right, so we're going to start with we're going to do this shape. Okay, let me get a part file going. And uh, no, not that. Stop it. Okay. Let's go, too many things. Those of you just watching the back screen are not seeing my struggle with all the windows and all the controls, and I'm trying. Okay, there's nothing else to see. I'm just showing you that that's the struggle. Okay, so we're gonna go. Well, I'm gonna set up my thing, and I'll do my grid so that it looks good. And yeah, there's no other difference between the front and back. You're fine. Okay, so if y'all don't mind following along, I actually need it to be taller, and we'll go like this. And we'll get this one out of the way. So many things on the screen. Okay, so as we have in the past, guys, thanks. As we have in the past, when we're doing any sort of revolve, like we did with the pegs, we are the key is deciding what your center axis is going to be. And clearly, this is our center axis. That's going to be our first line. And it's going to be, in this case, the total height, which is 1.75. Okay, and then I actually need this to be smaller. Well, let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, start a sketch, XY plane, because we're sketching on the front and we like the up from that perspective. And from the center point straight up, dimension 1.75. Okay, this is our center line, our center axis that we're going to revolve around. And then, okay, so I actually got to shrink this one. Okay, so we've drawn this line, which for now, ignore these this cutout. Okay, we're going to pretend it's solid, and then when we're done, we'll use these dimensions to draw circles and cut circle holes, or cut extrusions. So we're pretending it's solid for now. So our shape is just going to be this, as if it was solid. So far, we only have this. Okay, our next line is from the center out, and because the dimension we have is a diameter, 0.5, what we want is a line here that's 0.25, because when it gets revolved, it sort of doubles and makes the whole thing. So we just need a little horizontal line that's 0.25, and then we need a vertical line that is also 0.25, but that's because it's vertical. So we'll get a line. We'll go from here straight over, dimension it to a quarter, 0.25. Nope. 0.25. There we go. And a line here that goes straight up, 0.25. Right click done with the dimension tool. If this helps show you what we're actually dimensioning, it's that so far. Okay, and let's look at where we're going. So this is another situation where, just like everything on the green sheet that had a sloped line, we don't need to know the length of the line, and we don't need to know the angle of the line. As long as we know where it starts and where it finishes, we can just connect those points. We know where it starts, which is right here. We just need to know where it finishes. And where it finishes is a point out in space that happens to be 1.5 off of the ground, off of our lowest point. And it is also on this widest edge, this ridge that goes all the way around. And this ridge has a diameter of 1.25. Okay, so the distance all the way across at its widest point is 1.25. But since we're measuring from the center axis out, this point is half of that from the center out. So this point is 1.5 off the ground and half of 1.25 in. The way we're going to do this is with just a work point. We need to put out a point in space somewhere out here, okay? And we'll get a dimension tool and click on that point, and then click on either the bottom corner, or the bottom line. That's a good one. Bottom line is good because then it's always going to be vertical dimension. So we have this, the height is 1.5. Okay, so it's 1.5 off the ground, but we need to give it its left and right location, which the distance from that point to the center is 1.25/2, because the entire thing is 1.25 at its widest point. Okay, its widest point is 1.25 all the way across, but we are only interested in the distance from the center out. Okay, and it looks kind of wonky with all these dimension lines all over the place, but it's kind of like that. Okay, so we just have this work point that is in the right place, and once we have that, we can just get a line tool that goes from there to there. Boom. And it's already fully constrained because that point is fully constrained. Okay, we are actually crushing it a lot better than I recall. And let's get rid of that. We'll go there, and all the tools. Great. Okay, so we've made it all the way around from here, 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 here. That puts us, this is where we are right now. Okay, the only dimension we have for this point is that it increases, or it goes up and tapers in at 15 degrees. That's the only dimension. Okay, we know, okay, we are right here. Come on in. Thanks, bud. We are right here, and we know this line goes up and in at 15 degrees off of vertical, and we know it stops when it gets to the highest point. We don't know anything else about the line. We don't even know where this point is. We don't know its length. We just know the other things. We know where it stops. It stops all the way across the highest point, and it goes up at 15 degrees. So that's what we're going to do. Okay? we need a line that goes from this point, and you can get a soft snap here, that's fine. But it doesn't have to be because we're going to connect it. In fact, here's what we'll do. We'll get one line that goes up just past everything is fine, and then another line from the same point that snaps to vertical, making sure that the second one you get click. Okay, and once we have those two, we can dimension the angle, which I don't think we've done before. To dimension an angle, oh, I just found a new keyboard shortcut. Double click the mouse wheel and it is home. Oh, that's lovely. I've been doing this forever and I just discovered that. Anyway, okay, so with the dimension tool, just like you would dimension a length of a line, you click on one of these lines, not the green dot, and then click on the other line, not the green dot, and then click in between, and we can dimension that angle, and we know that angle should be 15 degrees. Okay, and you know it's an angle dimension, well, because it, for which one? Tell me how far to go back. This one? These two lines, we don't have a length for them. We're just worried about making sure this one is 15 degrees off of vertical, and we're going to draw a line just straight over till it meets it. So we don't know this length, or we don't need to know this length. We're just doing it there as sort of a building framework type of thing. Okay, so we're not worried about the length of these lines. We need to make sure that this one is snapped to vertical so that we can measure from that, because that's the angle that they give us. They give us, it goes, the angle between straight up and the angle of the material is 15 degrees. So we are doing this just to get the angle. So with the dimension tool, click on one line, click on the other line, and then click in between, and the angle is 15 degrees. Okay, so now all we need to worry about is that the top going straight out needs to go snap to horizontal, starting on this point, snap to horizontal, and go until it reaches the 15-degree line. And that will be our entire shape, our entire loop. So with the line tool, first click there, make sure it snaps to horizontal, come on in, make sure it snaps to horizontal, and when it's horizontal, go all the way until it meets the slope line. And that is our main sketch. Does anybody need, this is a good point to catch up. Does anybody need another look at something up until this? How far back? Tell me when. I'm not watching. You have to say when. Okay. Wow, that's far back. Okay, so we made a work point out in space. The location of that is 1.5 off the ground and 0.625 from the inside. A work point, or just, it's just called point. It's next to rectangle, it's right here. Point. You got it? Okay, you just put it out in space, like kind of in this area. Okay, and then get the dimension tool and dimension the distance from that point to like the bottom line. Okay, and that needs to be 1.5. Okay, and then the distance from that point to the center, the distance from the new point to the center is 0.625. 0.625. Okay, and then get a line that connects those two, connects your new point to the old point. Just snap to snap. There we go. And then you need a line, and just draw a line, one line straight up and one line up and a little bit in. Just past everything. Just straight up, that's fine. And then another line from another line that goes up and in. From the same point, from your work point. Yeah. Okay, just set it. And then dimension tool, dimension, click on the slope line and click on that snap to vertical line and then click in between to get the angle dimension. And then set it to 15. Okay, and then we just need a line from the top of everything that goes due east, snap to horizontal, and goes until it runs into the sloped line. Yeah. Okay, so at this point, we have our closed loop. We're going to do finish sketch and revolve. And there's only one loop to revolve. It knows what we want to revolve. But the thing we have to choose where we have to choose the axis, which is going to be our vertical line. Everyone good on the revolve? You just have to choose, when you go to revolve, it knows you want to revolve everything, but you have to choose which axis, and you don't want that. Although you can kind of get a hint, that looks a lot like the wheel. But revolve and choose the center axis, and we're good. Okay, the only two other features for this are a pair of cuts on the inside. Okay, one of them is 0.375 diameter with a depth of 1.5. That's the narrow one cutting all of really deep. And the other one is 0.875 cut 0.375. So a diameter of 0.875, but only a little cut is the wide but shallow one. And the other one is 0.375 cut 1.5. That's the narrow and deep one. Okay, but you need to note that both of these depth measurements are from the top surface. Okay, it's not the wide one that's cut shallow and then the narrow one that's cut further. It's not that. They're both dimension. That's weird because the light switch isn't even on. Is it is it that? Yeah. Can you go under there and plug it in? Because your feet are unplugging it. Yeah. No. You got a question over here? I saw a hand. Okay. Let me do this and then what's up? It won't let you select it. One of the lines isn't connected. It's probably that green line. Go in and edit the sketch. In the browser bar, do right click edit sketch so that you can work on it. Edit on sketch 1, I'm guessing. Yeah, there you go. And you could probably delete that green line and redraw it, making sure to snap. Hold on a second. Yeah, you edit sketch. Got it. You can say anything. Find that sketch there. Oh, I got it. Get a line. It wasn't the closed loop, you didn't know what you screw. Okay, that's fine. We just like yep. And then yeah. Yeah. Which line those first line yeah. All right. Okay. Give me a point. Please. Yeah. That point. Baseline. Yeah. Here. With the 1.5. Okay. This is that point. Center. Right. Okay. All right. So the last two features are coming in. You need a line that goes from your wood point, yeah, that's it. From the point, yeah. Build something in, down to here. Dimension. First click on the green line, yeah. Yeah. You're looking in, yep. Yep, 15 degrees. Okay, and that line. Top of everything. Yeah. Go due east, snap it to horizontal. And then finish sketching word wall. Okay, so the last two portions, the last two features are the narrow deep hole and the shallow wide one. But like I said, they're both mentioned from the dimension from the top. So it's actually going to be easier to do the narrow one with the longer depth first. And then we'll do the wider one with the shallow one, the shallow cut. So we're looking for 0.375 diameter, 1.5 deep, just a circle. Okay, start a sketch on the top face, get a circle with a diameter of 0.375, finish sketch, extrude, choose that circle, switch it to cut, and we want to cut 1.5 as it told us to do. Okay, and then the other part is another sketch on the top surface. And let's look at the dimensions so we can learn. Cutting 1.5, yeah, from that top. The second one has a diameter of 0.875 with a cut depth of 0.375. So again, I made the shallow or the narrow deep hole. We're going to put a sketch on the top. We're going to get a circle from the center going out. Okay, we already have that little hole. Let's dimension that to 0.875. Okay, and now we're going to finish sketch, and we will cut extrude that one. Extrude, choose the 0.875 circle, switch it to cut, but only cut 0.375. Okay. The wide shallow one is cut 0.375. Oh yeah, we haven't seen that. I don't think we've seen this before. This symbol right here, you might be able to infer based on context, but it is the depth of the cut, that little arrow pointing down. We don't usually see this one. I'm not entirely sure. I think you can figure out what it means. But there's that. Okay, and of course, save it the way you're used to. Call it whatever you're doing. Are you calling it train stack? Or are you calling it mini train stack? whatever you're doing, be consistent so that it's easier to find later. Okay. Circle diameter 0.875, cut extrude 0.375. Cut 0.375. Excellent. I promised you I was going to show you the easier way if you know how to do it. Okay, so we can do this in 3 steps. First is a circle that's 0.5, extruded 0.25. Let's do that. And you don't need to copy this. I'm just showing you if you're interested. Okay, 0.5, finish sketch, extrude 0.25. Okay, and then the next one, we know that this edge right here is 1.5 off the ground. So we can make a new work plane. And that plane is, well, just an offset sketch plane. If we're already at 0.25 and we want this thing to be 1.5 off the ground, that means the further distance is 1.25. So we can do start a new sketch, or we can just do offset from a plane, and we want to offset at 1.25. And then start a sketch on that plane, make a circle, the size, the total size of the other thing, 1.25. And we can finish sketch and loft this edge into this edge. And then the last extrusion, we know it's another 0.25, but with a taper of 15 degrees, which, let's start a sketch here, finish sketch, extrude this, and taper 15 degrees. Wait, negative 15 degrees. And there you go. There's smokestack, well, with the other part. It's just a different way of thinking about it as like solid extrusions rather than a, a revolve. Same difference. You end up with the same thing. Okay, the only other one we're going to do today, which is actually kind of complex, is the wheel. And the wheel has, I mean, you could see it's in 3 different drawings. There's the front, the close-up of the linkage nub, and the back. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to ignore the back for a while. We're just going to make it as if it was solid. And of course, we're going to ignore the nub for a while. We're going to pretend that's not there. So we're going to need to infer a bunch of dimensions for this one. And I won't. Yeah. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is draw this section view, this cross section, and then revolve it around our center axis. But it's sketchier than you think, so to speak, because we've got these little rounded edges that you can tell what they are because they point, or this dimension points to it, and it says TYP, which is short for typical, and it means that this, and this all have this dimension. And it's a R, which means it's a radius. You know it's pointing to this curved surface. Okay? There are actually 4 separate curved surfaces here that we will get to, fillets. But of course, we're going to do fillet after it's apart. We're not going to do the sketch fillet. Okay? And since we are used to drawing our sketches like we did with just that, where we draw everything to the right of center and then revolve it, we are actually going to sort of twist this where we're drawing, the shape we're going to draw is going to be something like this. Okay, which is this shape right here. Okay, and this will be our center axis, and we'll revolve it around that way. So we need to sort of infer those dimensions. Now, there's another issue, and that issue is that our center axis, which is clearly this line right here, there's no material touching it. Okay, there's actually a little gap before we actually do that. So it would be like drawing a center axis and then figuring out where this line actually starts, this one. But that's not what we're going to do. We are going to pretend like it's solid there for the sake of our sketch, and pretend like it's solid there for the sake of our sketch, and make this as if it was there. And then later we will cut the hole once there's something there. We'll draw a circle and cut the hole there afterwards. Okay, if that felt like a lot, it is. So stick with me. So now what we have to do is just figure out the dimensions of our first revolve. Okay, and so we can use this as our sort of baseline. Okay, we know that this is the distance from our what will be our center axis, and this farthest point is 1. Okay, and we can break this up into a long, narrow rectangle, a short, wide rectangle, another short, wide rectangle, and an arc. Okay, and because this arc, you can see this arc has a radius of 0.125, and the entire distance across is 0.25, you know that this arc is actually like a perfect circle that fits in there. And that should maybe remind you of, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the shapes from the green sheet, where we'd make something that looks like this with a combination of a rectangle and a circle. Okay. You can also see that this 0.125 goes all the way through, which means that this distance is 0.125, but this is 0.25. Okay, so it's twice as big, and this 0.25 thing goes all the way there. So this part is 0.25. Okay, so if that was a lot, just stick with me. I will lead you to the promised land. Okay, and so I think that's probably good for this angle of view. Let's start a new part. And I'll do this, and we'll go document settings and sketch and And okay, so let's start a 2D sketch on XY plane. It's kind of weird. I suppose technically it should be the ground plane, but don't worry about it. Okay, so we are going to build this out of a couple of rectangles. The first one is our low skinny one that has a width of 1 and a height of 0.125. Okay, that is this portion actually measured all the way from the inside. Okay, that's this, obviously. Okay, and then we have okay, from 0.25 in, which is right here, we need another rectangle that is 0.25 by another 0.125. So the total is 0.25. Okay. And then we need another short rectangle here that's going to be like this, the same size, another 0.125, and the difference between these two. So that's 0.25. Okay. So again, just stick with me. We need a rectangle from here that goes up and in, and that distance is another 0.125 and 0.25 this way. And on the other side, it's the same thing, a rectangle from here that is 0.125, which you might actually get a soft snap to for free. And this, which is 0.25. Okay, and that gets us this, 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 and this. Okay. Okay. And actually, like that. Okay, so the only other thing we need is this arc here, which is going to go like this. But again, it's a lot easier to just draw the circle with this as the center point and this as the edge, and it will snap to the correct place for free. Okay, so we'll get a circle. First click on this center point here. Second click on the corner, and it will be the perfect size. Okay, this is a good place to make sure everyone's caught up. Thank you. Also, what other side? No, there's nothing on the other side. I will show you that. Did I really have this open? Okay, so once we have all this, we're just going to revolve it. Finish sketch, revolve, choose everything. Since there's more than one thing to revolve, you need, what's up? I got you. So since there's more than one thing to revolve, you have to select it all. And I got you. Select it all, and then we need to get the cursor for axis, and we just need to choose something, either this one or this one. And there you go. There is our wheel. Either one of the, well, once you have everything, the axis is either this one or this one. Either one of our, that first center axis of the world. You have to get the cursor. It says axis. Select axis. I'll choose this. Nope, not that. This is fine. Yeah, this is basically that first vertical window. Go ahead and give it a shot. Yeah, I got it. So point. All right. I'm gonna keep going. I'll catch you all up when we get to the end. I'll come around and make sure everyone's on pace, and then I guess I probably need some points somewhere. Okay, so again, revolve, choose everything. And since there are lots of things to choose, you have to, once you select everything, you have to get the select axis. You need to select the axis, and the axis is the center one there. Okay, so the thing here that says radius 0.0625, super tiny, that goes to everything. I've shown you this before, how the fillet tool for sketch is kind of sketchy. Actually, you can't even do that. No, let's go revolve. We're going to do the part feature fillet, which is, once we have this, we're going to go fillet. We'll set the dimension to 0.0625. If you do 0.625, it's going to get mad at you. And there are 4 edges to fillet. And in fact, it's everything that they let you select. One here, one here, one here, and one here. I'll do it again. Okay, fillet tool, set the dimension first, otherwise you won't see a preview. And we need to select the edges. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, the upper of the outside, the lower of the outside, the upper of the inside, and the lower of the inside. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Needs to be 0.0625. 0.0625. Fillet tool, 0.0625. Click, 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 and click. All right, so there's two other major sections to this. There's this linkage nub, which is actually just a series of circles extruded on top of each other. And there is this series of, well, I suppose technically these are the spokes, but we're going to create the spokes by cutting the holes. And once we cut the holes, what's left over is the spikes. Now, the way we're just going to essentially copy a lot of this sketch. Okay. We really only need to make one of these. And if we make one of these and cut extrude it, we can pattern it 6 times all the way around and it'll be right. So we're only interested in one of these. Now, how do we make the line? Well, clearly it's a cut extrusion through, so we just need that shape once drawn on the back. And this shape is made up of these 2 lines, which are 30 degrees away from each other, and these 2 arcs, where the inner arc has a radius of 0.375, which is that distance, and the outer arc has a radius of 0.625, which is that distance. So we can do a couple of lines and then a couple center point arcs. Yeah. Okay, so you're good. So we're just going to draw lines that go out in space that are 30 degrees apart. But the key is, you'll notice that this first line is 15 degrees off of horizontal. And the reason for that is if you just do this sketch on horizontal, when you get to the point of doing the nub, the linkage nub, there's not going to be any material there. Okay, we want the linkage nub to end up on a spoke rather than on a hole. And that's why we need to do that little bit of offset. Okay, so we're going to start out with 3 lines. One that snaps to horizontal, another line that is 15 degrees off of that, and another line that's 30 degrees off of that. From the center on, and we're going to do the sketch. All of this is going to be done on the back because it's flat at this point. So it's a lot easier to handle. And so let's look, I don't know, the back, I guess, like that. It's not super critical the way you're looking at it, but we're going to sketch on the back. And I guess, yeah, when you're looking at it, if it says bottom, whatever, make it so that you can read it. And our first line from the center, I'm going to put it past everything so it doesn't interfere. It just needs to snap to horizontal, however long, snap to horizontal. Okay, get a new line from the center going out past everything but up a little bit. And we'll get the dimension tool, click on one of the lines, click on the other line, and click in between. That's 15. We're on the back of the entire thing. Just because it's flat. It's going to end, it doesn't really matter. It's just less to get in the way. 15 degrees off of our first horizontal line. That's not what I want. Okay, and then we need another line from the center point that goes up even more, and we'll dimension the angle between that newest line and our second line to 30. Okay, a good sort of general rule of thumb for this is if you put dimensions where they are on the drawing, you're 90% of the way there. Like, just essentially just make it look like the drawing. You're good. Okay, so we've got we are halfway on our goal of making one of these sort of shaped holes. We've got the two sides. These are going to be the two sides of it. We just need to make an arc here and an arc here, and that will close in the thing. Okay. And how big are those arcs? Well, first of all, which type of arc? It needs to be a center point arc because that's what we're measuring from. So far, we've only done like 3-point arc, which like on the peg or whatever, that's what you would do, but that's not what we want for that. Okay, so we are going to get a center point arc, and the first click, I'll come back to it. Okay, center point arc with the first click on the center, the second click on one of our 30-degree lines, and then the last click on the other 30-degree line. And we can make that the inner dimension, okay, which you can see where this radius 0.375 is pointing to this arc, which is what we want. So the dimension for this is 0.375. You just need to click once on that line and then sort of get out of the way. 0.375. Oh, that's a slash. 0.375. That's the inner part. And then the outer part's the same, except it's 0.625. So we're going to get another center point arc. First click on the center of everything. Second click on one of our 30-degree lines, and third click on the other 30-degree line. And then the dimension of that is 0.625. And let me just check something before. Yeah, okay. So if you did it correctly, it will let you cut extrude that. What's up? I think you chose the wrong type of arc. Okay, I'll go back. Okay, well, all right. For those of you following along, here's where we are. Or those of you with the 30-degree lines, at least. I'll come back if you're farther back. I'll come back. We're almost done with this, actually. So you need a center point arc. First click on the center point. Second click on one of the 30-degree lines. And third click on the other 30-degree line. You got to click on the line. Okay, and then dimension tool. Click on that and just set it somewhere out of the way. 0.3732. 37. 0.375 for this one. And then another center point arc. Click on the center. Click on one of the 30-degree lines. Click on, I messed that up because I clicked on the green line. Always careful to not click on the green dot unless you absolutely mean it. Like we do want to snap to this point for our first click, but for the other ones, we don't want green snaps because that constrains it. And then this one again, I've already forgotten, 0.625. You look back. To how far back? Yeah. Did you make a center point arc? Center point arc. First click on the center. Yeah. Second click on one of the 30-degree lines. Third click on the other 30-degree line. Dimension tool. Click on that green line. Get it. Just put it. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, anywhere out of the way. Yeah. Click 0.375. And then you do 0.375? Oh, okay. You just super zoomed in. That's fine. And do another one that's a little bit farther out. Well, same center point. And then one of the 30-degree lines. The same, yeah, the same basic shape as the other one. Yeah. Yeah. But dimension 0.625. Dimension tool. Yeah. Just somewhere that, yeah, that's fine. 0.625. Okay. All right. So we've got our shape. We're gonna finish sketch and extrude, and we want to extrude that shape we made, but just one of them. And we don't want to create material. We want to cut material, and the depth of cut, I mean, anything more than 1/4 inch is going to be the right amount, but the pro way is just through all and hit okay. Okay, so now we have one of these. We can just do a pattern, and the tool we want is called circular pattern, and it looks like this. You may or may not have the word circular there, but it's this one. And the feature we want to pattern is that extrusion, which you can choose from the part, or you can just choose it from the browser bar, extrusion 1. The rotation axis is anything that's round will be the same axis. And the default is 6 of them, which is how many we want, coincidentally. And the default is all the way around, 360 degrees. You could do it like halfway around if you wanted, if that's what the shape was, but that's not what we want. We want the default number of them, which is 6 of them, and the default is all the way around. Okay, and that's how you get a bunch of these. Of course. All right, so from here, does everyone have one of the extrusions? Like I said, I'll come back. Okay, circular pattern. The feature you want to pattern is extrusion 1. And the rotation axis that you want, you need to tell it the rotation axis is anything that, well, pretty much anything else on this part will give you the correct rotation axis. And then the default for the other things. All right, I'll come around and catch a bunch of people up because we're far enough people over step back. Click on the arrow for partitions. Beneath the cursor. Yeah. All right. You need to do that as sketchbook. Well, hit undo. I guess the issue is the last. Just the undo our same back arrow at the top. Why do you look at it? Yeah. All right. I'll finish sketch. Yeah. Definitely. Actually, edit that sketch. No, not a new sketch. All right, click on sketch, edit sketch. So, okay, and I need the height dimension. What happens to this line? That just be 1.29. Okay, height this box here, so short line, tall, bigger. So 5. Okay, and this circle over here, go down. And, actually, yeah, fix it this way. One setting. Set that dimension. Mention that symbol. Only 2.5. Okay, and go ahead and hold up. Let's get it all. Choose all of the things. All of them should. Yeah. Hit the cursor for rotation axis. Yeah. And then choose. Yeah. Good. Now do you fill it? Okay, and choose set it to 0.0625. Okay. Perfect. And then click on all 4 of them. Yeah. 4, 3, 4, 12. Yep. Nope. Inside. Yep. And inside. Yep. Okay. Okay. Can you go on your sketch for your extrusion 1? Okay. You need a center point part.
First click on the center of everything. Second click, sort of out, yeah. And third click on the lower right. Yeah. Dimension tool, dimension that create on, yeah. Speed out 2 lines, put it out, that's my going, 1.375. Yes, that's all. And I'll give the same thing here. Oh, another one. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's an inch. Okay, and then sketch. And make sure you're in line. The better shape of the and always look at the corner. Yeah, switch out right extrude. Think that weird. Okay, I think you're at the first extrude. Go to resolution 1 and do regulate flat stitch. I think it. You might drop now. Change that into T. Change that to and say like this. Yeah. And mentioned that change that one to 25. Yeah. There. You guys are fingers. Okay, except another. No, that's not good. Also our sketch particularly. Here. Go to regulate keys. But I'll check. Okay. And now. Good. Yes. Okay. Go to machine. Oh yeah, so you make it up the steps. So you have to use it. Then you can click on the lecture. And sync the number says 5 profiles. And will it let you choose that outer part? Yeah, that and this. Yeah, that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You and then okay, it's just that you're not saying all right, go to revolution 1. Sketch and then to all these right 1.7 foot of the top. Right. Then just get it in the surface. All the way. Yeah. Look at that. Finish that jet. All right, build tool. Set it to point. There's one. There's 4. Yeah, that's one. Outside, yeah. That shapes out. Going up, something outside. Yeah. You need the same thing. You show them the right shape there. We will call it up to the pattern. Show you our pattern. Start it. So YouTube, you need all the great. On the top, there's this little circular thing. Make it right up tiny thing. That thing right there. Circular pattern over. Yeah. So that one, the feature you want to pattern is the cut you just made, which you can either select by clicking on the cut or in the browser bar where it says extrusion 1, just click on the circuit, yeah, that's what your, circuit pattern. When a new, that. Yeah. When a new tool comes up, the first thing that's selected, the first thing you have to tell it what feature you want to pattern. Feature you want to pattern is the cut, which, yeah, that's, you can always select round one. And then you need to tell it the rotation axis, get the first one, I tell it rotation axis, yeah. And the rotation axis is anything that's round. Yeah, yeah, okay. And we give you six. Yeah, there you go. Same thing, same thing. Hit cancel. Circle pattern. Thing you want to revolve is through one to it. And then tell it rotation axis. Yeah, the quick conversions. Tell select anything that's right. Yeah. Yep, and okay. And you are very close. Okay, cool. Let's work through this. Mouse. Delete circuit, right, go to circuit pattern one. Yeah, right click. Okay, and go to extrusion one. Do right click the D on that. But uncheck that checkbox. Okay. Okay, and look at it from the bottom. Okay, you've got something. The dimensions of that are fine. The issue is something else. So go to Revolution 1. You right click Revolution on Revolution, right click edit sketch. This is 1. Don't change the 1.5 to 1. No, you gotta click on it. And all these 0.25s, vertical, that's 0.125. Yep. That also. Yeah. That is proven. Then we'll do it through and choose the choose your that cut works the same. Yeah. All right, are you guys stuck in this one? All right, so you need a circular or a center point arc. So underneath arc, they drop down for arc. And a type of arc, center point. First we is on the center of the field, center of everything. Yeah, second clip is on one of the 30-degree lines.
You also have some weird setting, some projected, but
Let me, you have, see how this is. Just that. That's the one. That's why every time you like draw something, it like highlights the thing underneath. Yeah. Go to functions, sketch, and that section. All right, so you need a center point or first click on the center point. You don't have, yeah. And then second click on one of those 30-degree lines right there, it's fine. But not on the edge, just somewhere, but yeah. And then second click on the other 30-degree line, yeah. Okay, and get dimension. And dimension that green line, so don't go off to the side somewhere below. Somewhere over there, that's fine. So yeah, and that should be what 375. just, on the zoom line, yeah, go out to the side, yeah, 0.275.
Okay, and then do it again, but one that's a little bit bigger than, yeah. Yeah, so 10.65.
Slide to this. Where mention that. 39 to 0.60. There you go. You get the 0.65? Okay, you're gonna help him, all right, then finish sketch. Do extrude. Get it ready, which is extrude button thing, that, gives you the cut. And, yeah. And, that's fine. The whole show you look at the corner while you're cutting, make sure it's going in the same direction. Direction, okay. Okay, and then I'll circular pattern, which is this dotted circle right there, yep. Yep, and first thing you have to tell it what features on the pattern, which is the cut, that's first click. Yep, and then the second click, you get the cursor for rotation axis, yeah. I'll put the cursor down. And what rotation axis, anything that's right, yep. Yep, yep. Okay.
All right, let me get to the last feature of this, and then we will, I'll let it process and we'll get it up, so you can get to it. Okay, so this last feature is unofficially the linkage nub. It's where the linkage arm connects, which is this thing. This thing connects front to back, but it needs to be the right size because this is actually one of the first like critical dimensions that you have, because if it's not the right distance out, it won't be the right distance between the wheels. And if it's not the right distance between the wheels, the linkage arm will jam as you try to actually animate it. Okay, so let's see what we've got. We've got this nub that sticks out. That is the first, this widest part has a diameter of 0.25 and extruded out 0.375. Then there's this next part that is 0.125 extruded 0.125. And then there's a hole that's this big and 0.25 deep. Okay, and they're all centered on top of each other, which is easy. But the key is we have to know where to draw this first one. And this first one is 0.7 from the center. Okay, this is important to note that the point you'll see here in a second, we're going to sketch on the face because all these extrusion dimensions are from sort of the face of the spokes. That's where we're going to do our sketch so that our extrusions are the distance that we don't have to like calculate the extrusion distance, we just know. But you'll see when if we find a point that's 0.75 over, or excuse me, 0.7 over, it can intersect with things. In fact, I'm going to show you the pro way of doing it to avoid that. Okay, and so let's do a sketch on this sort of like interface, not interface, the face of the spokes. And while you're looking at it, hopefully we're going to do our circle right here. If you somehow did it so that when you look at it, due east is like a cut, you need to rotate it so that when we are doing, if you're copying me, obviously you could go vertical at that point, but if you're copying me, make sure that it's rotated so that there's material here to draw on. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to do slice graphics. Okay, if you do right click and go to slice graphics, which is also keyboard shortcut F7, it cuts away everything that's on whatever side of the sketch you're doing. Because this sketch goes through the middle of what we're doing, because we sketched on the face of the spokes, the plane actually cuts down the middle. And if you do right click slice graphics, or again, F7 key, it cuts away things so that we can see on the inside. Okay. And so what we're going to do is just to get everything snapped to horizontal, I'm actually just going to use a line. And from the center point straight out, snap to horizontal. Make sure it snaps to horizontal. And you'll know if it has any sort of aliasing, you can see how like the line gets choppy. That means it's not horizontal. Okay, so we're just going to have a line that goes out like that. And I'm going to dimension this to 0.7. What that means is the endpoint of this line is going to be our starting point for our first extrusions. But like I said before, look at how this endpoint is very close to the line that is sort of the edge of our fillet. Okay, so when we do our circle, you got to make sure that you're using this endpoint here rather than like something else. Again, otherwise otherwise you're going to have to come back and fix it later. Okay, this isn't an aesthetic thing. This is where things are going to connect. So if you have your slice graphics, you can get a circle and put it on that endpoint as your first click. And this is going to be our widest base circle, which is a diameter of 0.25. You can see where it's pointing to. It's pointing to this edge, which is what we want. Diameter 0.25, extruded 0.375. So let's do that first. We'll get a dimension tool, dimension that circle to, I already forgot, 0.25. Finish sketch, extrude. Make sure you choose that circle, which you'll have to sort of see through. Yeah. You may have to zoom in to get everything. That's weird. Okay. All right. So going back a second. How far are you? Do you have the slice graphics? Okay. We just need a circle that is 0.25 diameter. And we'll finish sketch, extrude, and find somewhere that you get the full circle, usually sort of towards the edge of the circle. You don't want, I mean, you can select just the portion and then go around, select all the portions, but it's easier just to find a spot where it's fully highlighted. And the length we want to extrude is 0.375. Correct. And then once we have that, we can do the second extrusion portion, which the second extrusion portion, if you see where that's pointing to, it's this outer part, well, that part right there, the part that we're extruding, and that is 0.125 diameter, extruded 0.125. So we can go, the first one is extruded 0.375. Okay, so we'll put another sketch on top of here. We get our center point, another circle. That is 0.125, a tiny one, 0.125. Finish sketch and extrude that out, 0.125. Okay, and then the absolute last part is a hole. You can tell it's pointing to a hole because it has a depth dimension. And the hole, which you can see that arrow pointing to, has a diameter of 0.0625, and it's a depth cut of 0.25. So look at the dimensions, man. Like look at your here. This is what we're extruding. This 0.375. The first one is extruded 0.375. The second one is extruded 0.125. Okay, now, so on top of what we have, we need a circle that's 0.0625, extruded 0.25, and we're done. Okay, so on top of this, we'll start a sketch there. We'll get a circle, same center point, and dimension it to 0.0625. And now we can finish sketch. We can extrude, choose that circle, switch it to cut, and we want to cut 0.25. And hit OK. And there you go. There is the wheel. And if you weren't sure, we only need to make this once. When we go to the assembly, you just bring it in 4 times. So that's useful. Okay, so I'll end it there, and I'll come around and help those who need the help.